It feels like we've collectively been waiting for months for this paddle over here to be released. But today's discussion isn't about what could be the most controversial paddle release in recent memory, but rather what's attached to it. How's it going, everybody? Rafa the Pickleball Tech Dude here, and welcome to This Week in Pickleball Tech, Episode 2. This is a series where I take you guys into my head as a professional pickleball product reviewer and condense what may be 10 to 15 minutes of content elsewhere to learn about 4 to 5 different pieces of pickleball tech that myself and other reviewers have been testing each and make it less than 2 minutes of key takeaways. So with that being said, I have my 5 participants selected for this week, and let's get into it. Leading off the batting order for this week, we've got these brand new dry over grips from Exo Grip. If you are a dry grip user in pickleball right now, you're probably pretty familiar with this bad boy right here, the good old dry Turner grip. The interesting thing about Exo Grips is there isn't anything fundamentally different in terms of materials or concept that make them different from a regular dry grip. However, there are certain attributes that I feel make them perform better than anything I've tried so far. The main thing about your regular Turner dry grips are that I always felt like they were a little bit stodgy and kind of too full of moisture after long sessions, and also that fuzzy texture just wasn't super pleasing to me. The grips are thinner and therefore have a lighter weight feel to them, which does a pretty good job of absorbing moisture and also doesn't feel super soggy at the end of the session because the moisture wicking in between the games is a little bit faster. Now, those things are great and make these probably the best pickleball dry grips I've ever tried. However, a couple of things I didn't quite like about these were, firstly, they weren't significantly more durable than your standard Turner grip, and part of that is because of how thin and lightweight they are. And the second doesn't really have anything to do with the dry grips in particular. I think there was a slight missed opportunity here where Exo did make small improvements to your standard dry grip, and for that, I definitely think they're at least worth it at their price. However, a bigger difference could have been experienced with this texture on tacky grips. A long time ago, a paddle company called Weekend Warrior experimented with a similar texture on their stock grip and called it a hex grip. And that still till today is the best stock grip I have ever experienced on a paddle. So to see that their tacky grips are pretty much in a similar vein as Bodhi's ultra tacky grips was a little bit disappointing to see. And if you're wondering, for me personally, I'll probably be sticking with the Lukey Ultimates for now just because they're a nice hybrid between that tacky and dry grip feel. But let me tell you something, if these guys ever come out with a tacky grip in that same dry grip texture, that could be really promising. But for now, the dry grips are definitely super solid and still get my worth it stamp of approval. All right, let's get into item 2, which is going to be the Spartus Olympus. What you see on the outside looks like your normal hybrid shape paddle measuring 16.4 by 7.7 inches, a unidirectional carbon fiber plus fiberglass layup in the face, as well as a 5.5 inch handle length. It's what's on the inside that's so interesting to me. We're dealing with Gen 3 construction with foam injected sides, as well as a 14mm polypropylene core that is fully foam injected with non-expanding, more dense feeling foam, very similar to what we saw on the Nexus Pro Star, and Spartus is calling this their Ascension core. And almost more notably, in the throat area we have what Spartus is calling their phalanx system, which appears to be a very dense polymer that's placed there to reduce vibration and increase stability on the paddle. When it comes to paddles like this, I'm mostly concerned about sweet spot size and stability on the off-center shots. And the great thing about the Olympus is that it not only has a sweet spot that I felt was a little bit more flexible and forgiving, but it also had great stability far beyond what I normally expect from paddles of this shape and this core size. This is definitely a power paddle that is not for the faint of heart. It boasts a 6.1 twist weight, a swing weight close to 111, making it feel very quick in the hands of the net, which was awesome, and power levels that place it in the top 10 of all paddles that I've tried this year. The design on these paddles is super sick, and it's one where you can really experience the ball dwell time as the ball flexes into the face. So overall, if you're comfortable with Gen 3 power paddles, I would say this one has taken a much more digestible approach that you can acclimate to a lot faster than a lot of the super hot Gen 3s out there like the Ripples or the Yola mods. The only things I would look out for are, firstly, the paddle is super poppy, so at the net, be wary that more balls can be popped up there than you might be used to. And secondly, some people have been saying that their edge guards are coming loose, which I personally didn't experience, but is something to just keep in mind. At $180 with discount code RAFA, there's not a lot of paddles out there that really feel like this or are using the same kind of technology for improvement. At the same time, there's a lot of worse decisions that you can make at a similar or even higher price point with paddles that aren't taking the same level of digestibility towards high level power. So for those reasons, I'm going to say this paddle is worth it. In the 3 spot, let's have a look at a paddle that some of you may be familiar with. We're going to be looking at the Explore from Synergy Pickleball. The Explorer is an elongated paddle with a 5.25-inch grip, your standard Gen 2 construction with foam-injected walls and being thermoformed, and a face layup of raw carbon fiber and a very rigid fiberglass layer. The first thing you need to know about this paddle is this thing is gritty. I mean, just listen to this. Aside from the massive spin numbers, I've been investigating this paddle and why pros like Naveen Beasley, former Carbon Pro, are switching to this paddle. And one of the main things that I've realized is the extremely consistent reset ability. With power and hand speed numbers that are very middle of the road, one thing that I've realized is I believe the fiberglass layer in combination with the foam injected walls is creating a super solid and muted feel across the entire paddle face, which makes reset super easy and is something that I experienced previously with the Chorus Super Court. My biggest qualm with this paddle is easily the handle, which for me isn't quite long enough to support the two-handed backhands, is a little bit too thick in the stock form, and also just feels a little bit lower in quality than the rest of the paddle materials, which do feel very nice, and that was a little bit strange, but is something that I noticed. It represents the overall quintessential all-court paddle experience for me, and to me would be worth it in the specific case where you want that Goldilocks paddle, not too hot, not too soft experience, but want a more muted ball feel than what a Chorus Shapeshifter or Honolulu J2K can provide, which I do think is actually a good number of players. Moving on, we have a new fan favorite as of recent, the new Vatic Sagas. The Saga is Gen 1.5 constructed with foam injected walls but is not thermoformed or unibody. It has a T700 raw carbon fiber top layer to its composite face structure, and most notably has 10mm diameter cells in its 16mm polypropylene cores. Both the V7 and flash shapes of the Saga come in long handle 5.5-inch and short handle 5.3-inch form factors, with the long handle version of the flash shape in particular actually adding length to the overall paddle. I really love the overall feel of this paddle. I think there's a lot of paddles out there that claim that they can hit harder on drives and hit softer on drops and dinks, but this is one paddle where they have actually achieved that. As such, the overall shot accuracy and ball manipulation is very easily achieved with these paddles, with a slight exception going to the V7 long handle shape, which to me goes a little bit higher on the swing weight scale than a lot of people will be able to handle. However, the impact is pretty minimal. These paddles all have really good twist weight numbers already, being between 6.1 and 6.4 with great stability. However, what really impressed me was that with the power imparted, they definitely go in the all-court leaning power category, lagging just a little bit behind the Paddletech TKOs. However, despite that level of power, they really don't have a lot of pop at all, which really facilitates the playing softer on soft shots aspect. If there's any fault to be found here, I would just say with the Sega shape, I'm still not a huge fan of the tapered head shape that a lot of paddles are still using, because you end up having to reinforce the bottom corners anyways, and especially with the long handle version of the Sega, the swing weight's already at the 119, 120 range, and so it's kind of tough to want to put more weight on there. But yeah, overall for the lineup, at under $140 with discount code RAFA, it's very hard to say that these paddles aren't worth it. The only thing I want to test out longer is that with wider cell diameters, this core is going to flex, which gives you that premium ball feel experience, but also polypropylene isn't meant to flex like that, so it could mean faster core corruption, but that's something that I definitely need to test more before I say is even a fact. Alright, and the last thing I want to discuss today is the re-release of the Shapeshifter by Chorus Pickleball in their 3 brand new shapes. There aren't a lot of super major changes made with the paddle, but the few that were really sticking out to me were the thinner neck tapers on them mean a little bit more handle room. The foam injections in the walls are with more dense foam, leading to a little bit greater stability, and the fiberglass layer is reinforced further, meaning a little bit more firmness when you first play with the paddle. I have a full review up of the original Shapeshifter, which I would definitely recommend checking out, and I essentially categorize this as a Goldilocks paddle with really nice levels of all-court power and a super forgiving sweet spot that makes it an easy recommendation for pretty much any player. And really nothing that I said in that review changes much from this re-release. If anything, something off the spec sheet that I noticed right away is that the grit on this 3D 18K triaxial weave has actually been increased, which has improved the spin. But other than that, the reinforcement in the walls and also the reinforced fiberglass layer have really improved the stability on the paddle and have actually introduced a break-in period. But the break-in period for me was just 2 to 3 sessions longer than it was previously, after which you really begin to reap the benefits of that forgiving sweet spot that makes the Shapeshifter so good. If anything, with this re-release, Chorus has decreased the price of these paddles to under $160 with discount code RAFA, and with the diversification of the shapes, it truly makes this paddle easy to recommend for any player with any type of paddle shape preference. The EX has the highest balance point and feels the heaviest at a swing weight of 118. It has a twist weight of 6.3, which makes it still feel pretty stable, but the main thing is it has that higher plow through and that slightly higher power level than the OG. The SX is that classic wide body shape, that low swing weight at 111 with high twist weight 7.1, making it feel really stable. That's very characteristic of these paddle shapes and really makes it easy for that wide body paddle enthusiast who wants faster hand speed. And then the HX is right in the middle, that perfect Goldilocks between the two, with that 115 swing weight, 6.5 twist weight, putting it at the most similar in comparison to the OG in terms of that power and sweet spot forgiveness. All right, if you made it this far in the video, kudos to you, as I've partnered with Chorus Pickleball to give away a shapeshifter of your shape preference. All you have to do is comment the word shifty down below and you'll be entered to win, and I'll pick the winner at the beginning of episode 3. With that, thank you so much for making it here to the end of This Week in Pickleball Tech episode 2. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment down below what tech you want to see for next week. But until then, I hope you all stay happy and healthy, and of course, out on the courts until the next video. Peace.